Yo, what is good, Vibers? It is January 22nd, 2025. We are coming in with an absolutely massive patch from Theorycraft. And because sort of like the unexpected size of this baby, I'm going to do a super quick preview at the beginning here where I walk you through everything very briefly. And then we're going to go through more of like a patch analysis like I normally do, where we talk about all the changes a little more in depth and what they actually mean. So my goal for this video is for this first part to give you a very brief overview of all the changes in total, and then you can use the timestamps to navigate from there and find what you're interested in learning more about. And another shout out to Dindin for setting us up with this really nice like web app to view these patch notes in a really cool, better user experience type way. Some really nice formatting on here. So I will link this in the description if you want to view your patch notes through Dindin's little app here. I'm not normally a fast guy, but let's see how fast I can do this preview for you. So leveling rework plus big balance patch notes, no more per day level cap, new ability upgrades, lots of balance changes as more. So they do their little intro here. Big thing on Battlepass XP reduction. So it's going to take about half the XP as before to complete the Battle Pass. It is getting moved up a week. System changes. There's a huge leveling rework. Max level now 15. The per level caps removed. All kinds of stuff there. I think this is such a cool, unexpected change coming through here, and I think it's going to honestly feel really good. This is going to now give you XP for knocking someone instead of for a kill. So when you send them to the wisp state instead of the box, and that's going to have huge implications. We have a bunch of stuff having to do with the minions in the PvE because they're going to be a bigger part of the game with the leveling changes. We have redefined value of the meteor soul. We have that level cap being transferred over to arena. We have adjusted resurgence rules, which is now going to be set up so that your entire team shares the same timer. So instead of each individual having their own resurgence timer, this is going to be shared across your squad. So way less kind of instant reses coming through from resurgence. Also, next patch, they plan to give the ability to turn this off in custom games, so potentially high-level scrims could disable it if they wanted. Pretty cool. About a third reduction in the spell buffering timing. This is absolutely huge. Your mana is refilled upon knocking an enemy hunter. So when you send an enemy hunter to the wisp state, your mana is going to be instantly refilled. So this is going to have huge implications on how hunters build based on them maybe not needing a mana item anymore, or the mana item not being nearly as important as before this. Many hunters relied on a mana item to keep their mana full, but if you are now locking in knocks, not even like full kills, just knocks, right? Sending to the wisp state, you are going to get your mana completely refilled. So huge kind of subtle implications from this mana change here. We have a ton of hunter changes here in general. These are Beebo Buffs and bug fixes. We have a pretty massive Brall Nerf that we're going to get to in detail. We have a pretty big Celeste buff that we're also going to get to in detail and show some stuff in the practice tool. We have a pretty nice looking Elluna buff as well, with some new upgrades being added for both of them. A Felix toughness, which is the hidden base stat for max health, going down just slightly, so he's not going to be quite as beefy with the way his shielding scales. Hudson's ranges have been completely flipped, so his LMB range is now his RMB range, like it always should be. So the LMB is shorter now, the RMB is longer, so he's rewarded for charging up and holding his ground. Jin's ability to do the LMB bunny hopping thing is going to be reduced a bit. We're going to check out how much that impacts him. Pretty significant void buffs. I like these two new upgrades here. And then a touch on Zeph. They're not completely removing bunny hopping for those that were afraid of that. They're just going to make it so you can't do it indefinitely. And then we have a bunch of power changes. We got two new powers. We got all these changes to existing powers, a lot of focus on exotics and tuning the exotics down a little bit. Huge price increase on buying Gnarled Heart, which is the endgame item that lets you choose the location of the final circle. Brand new item, EMP Grenade, that's going to shred armor and slow in like an AoE. Pretty cool. New UI and audio around ascending armor, re-implemented texture for broken armor, and then for global shop, we have a halving the cooldown time, as well as some price increases, some map changes, big updates to Wellspring on the far like mid left of the map, all kinds of ping updates that are really good. Seem like they're going to be really good to help communication, as well as some emotes to help with communication, and then some client-side stuff. You're going to now be able to see your allies in your match history to interact with them, and then some kind of adjustments to the mastery mission for Felix Burned Out. All right, so that is sort of like the summary here. And now let's go through everything like a bit more in detail and kind of we'll look at all the hunter changes in detail. We'll look at a little more into what this stuff kind of means. So coming back to their introduction, they're basically just saying that they're trying to use our feedback to implement these big experimental changes to improve the game, which they're going to continue to learn from and iterate on in future patches. And along with making big changes, you sometimes get bugs, sometimes a lot of bugs. So if you guys see weird interactions or anything, they're reminding you to report them in the Discord. And then they also mentioned that they're going to do like a state of the game fireside chat in probably about a month or so. This patch will showcase big changes from how leveling works to hunter changes. We are looking forward to making this game the best we can, and we need your help. Send us any feedback, both positive and negative, so together we will make this game even better. So beyond bugs, guys, just like how you're feeling about these changes once you've gotten some games in, you know, and really understood like kind of the changes to these systems, definitely leave your feedback in the Discord in the proper channels. Let the devs know what's feeling good, what's not, so they can continue to adjust. So in this section, they're basically just saying they want the battle pass to be more accessible to like your average player to be able to complete. And so they're thinking with like missions included, it should take someone around 50 hours total of gameplay to be able to complete the whole thing. And they also had a timing adjustment where they had to move the ending up a week, but basically they're making it 50% easier to complete, but we're losing a week on the timing. So in general, you know, kind of like a buff to the battle pass to help us all complete it and get those rewards, as they will be going away permanently at the end of it, as is the nature of battle passes. Coming down to system changes, this is the huge chunk here, leveling rework. So this was in the previous video I made talking about the playtest that happened last week where they tested this stuff for the first time. And I thought this felt really good, to be honest, like in the few hours that I had playing on it. So I'm super excited to get out there today and get some games in and see how this is feeling like on a grander scale. But these are like really massive changes to how the leveling works in general. So before, the level cap was 9 like total, and you were able to get to level 10 with XP sold. Now it's going to be 15 for everyone. And then the biggest thing is you're no longer to be level capped depending on the day. So like on day 1, where you were artificially capped at 4 before and you had to PvP to get to 5, that's no longer going to exist. And so basically what's going to exist now is some range of monsters across the map that are going to vary in level, and you can basically get, you know, more XP depending on the level of the monsters you kill, and the monsters are what's going to sort of scale with the day timing. So the more days that go by, I assume the higher level the monsters are going to get, type of thing, right? Which is kind of what happened before, just like in a bit more of a discrete manner. So it should feel like a lot more fluid, a lot more smooth now. And one of the like main feedbacks that I was seeing from people on this was that they didn't want it to feel like more snowbally because there is no level cap. And to be honest, to me, it was feeling like a little less snowbally because if you imagine, you know, the way a team snowballs like before these changes, if you're PvPing, you can exceed the level cap. So the level cap doesn't apply to you if you're the team steamrolling. So you could easily come across like a level 8 team that's PvPing and you're stuck at level 6. And the only path forward for you to catch up to them is to get PvP kills. But if you're already behind on PvP, it makes it that much harder to get PvP kills. And so the snowball gap grows. Whereas in a system like this, you're always going to have the option to farm PvE. So in a situation like that, where you are behind on levels, you at least have a reliable route now to where you could, like, you know, maybe pivot and try to catch up before you take on that, you know, essentially losing fight 2 levels down, you know, to try to catch up to the snowball. But again, this was just a couple hours of playtesting, so we're going to really have to see how this plays out in the end. But they're doing some big changes with the way power scaling works. So like not powers themselves, but the actual like power level of your character. So you now gain 10 ability power per level, with your starting ability power like base at the very beginning being reduced. You're going to be weaker at the beginning, like do less damage, but you're going to now gain damage per level plus 10 ability power. And equipment is going to scale a similar way, where it's basically going to be weaker at the beginning. So the earlier versions are going to have 66% of their previous values, but then the upgrades are going to be 200% of previous values. So it's going to be like weaker gear, and then when you upgrade it, it's going to be like, you know, more powerful. It's basically going to start weaker and scale higher. And then coming down to this next change might be like my favorite one of the patch notes, and it's really cool because I didn't really like see or hear anything on this, but I really love this change. I think in theory we'll have to see how it ends up feeling once we're all out there, but basically now you are going to lock in the XP for when you knock an enemy hunter instead of when you kill them. So right here it says a knock is defined as when you take someone's health down to 0 and put them in a wisp state. A death or a kill is when that player goes into a death box state. So basically, before you were only getting experience on kills, and now you are going to get experience on knocks. So basically, when you put a hunter into the wisp state, that's when you're going to secure the experience. And the bigger the level differential between you and the target, the more XP that's going to give. And it's going to give less XP if they're lower level than you. And then there's also going to be this basically like diminishing return where if you're killing the same person repeatedly, it's going to have itself each time, the XP. So basically like a much more reliable way to secure XP and potentially catch up, you know, in a situation that we were maybe talking about like up here with the snowball and leveling changes, right? I really like the idea behind this change. We'll have to, you know, see how it ends up feeling in practice, but I think that is like a really cool one. Coming down to the next big change, this is basically, you know, with the higher weight being placed on PvE farming, we're making these guys a little easier to farm and solo. So this is like a big slew of creep changes, basically to adjust them according to the leveling changes, which makes sense. And so the minions now spawn between 6 and 15 with rewards and level adjusted appropriately. The minion backstab mechanic is gone, except for Magma Brutes and Sand Brutes. Minions now give 75% of the gold they used to give. So basically like a slight reduction on the gold to account for more creeps probably getting killed in these games because no more level cap. And these big changes to the counter damage and vulnerable state. So it defines it right here. Counter damage is when is the damage the monster takes when that circle comes up under him and you use a displacement or like a crowd control or a boop. Basically anything, every hunter has an ability that will instantly reset its cooldown if you use it on that. So like on Brawl, for example, it's his dash. So like if you dash when a creep has this circle under them, it will do this counter damage, and then it'll also reset the cooldown of that ability. And then the vulnerable state is after you counter it, it's going to take double damage for a period of time. So basically, that state of it taking double damage has been increased by 1.5 seconds from 3.5 up to 5 seconds. The counter damage for the big guys in the camp has been increased by 20% from 40 to 60%. The corrupted guardian, which are the guys that spawn, like the biome guys that spawn after you clear a zone, counter damage went up a huge amount, 25% from 5 to 30. So it's going to do way more damage to that guy. The Abyssal Hatchling also went up the same amount, so 25% increase, going to do way more damage to them. The Meteor Beast is still going to be 5%, so that one's going to be unchanged. And then the final Abyssal counter is up 5%, so doubled to 10. So basically, in general, the counter damage is going to do more across the board for the most part, and then the vulnerable state is going to be a bit longer, so it should be easier in general to kill these creeps. And then these are basically adjustments to the XP Meteor Soul. So I think basically everyone can get to level 15 now, but if you have the XP Meteor Soul, you're going to get an extra ability point at 14, and you'll get 2 extra ability points at 15. And the whole idea of that is you'll be able to unlock the full upgrade, the level 4 upgrade now, which are you'll be able to get all 3 of them if you have XP Soul. So the value of XP Soul, not your ult, just these 3. The value of XP Soul is going to be up even a bit more because you'd be able to get literally all 3 of these to level 4. And then they basically, you know, have mirrored the level changes over to Arena, where you'll start at level 15 in Arena with 1 ability point to max at level 4, which is basically the default without XP Soul now, I think. And then coming down to this is like big. People have been asking for some potential, you know, tuning down, some form of adjustments to Resurgence and the day 1 night revival rules. And they're basically like, you know, they hear that there maybe is too much rezzing happening and the kind of chain rezzing can be used, you know, to like push objectives and do stuff. So basically they're making it so your whole team now shares that respawn timer, where this used to be the individual increase. Like, so if you died once, it'd be 25 seconds to come back. If you died twice, it'd be 30, all the way up to 50, right? Now this is like true for your whole team. So basically the timer for people coming back is going to scale up a lot quicker. So you're going to see less of this like instant rezzing, especially if a team is dying kind of like over and over again. And then they also added this little tidbit where they're actually going to give the ability to turn this completely off in custom games, which I think is like going to be a really cool feature, especially for like high elo play if they're looking to, you know, try to play without it. And then taking a look at this spell buffering changes, this is basically just a 0.1 second reduction. This whole thing is to say they did a 0.1 second reduction on spell buffering, which ends up being like a 33% reduction. But basically, ability buffering means when you press a button and can't fire an ability for some reason, like you're crowd controlled or there's an overriding input or something, the game will preserve that intent for a little bit and keep trying to fire the ability. And so they're reducing that buffering window by 0.1 seconds. And this should basically, you know, if we look at the goal here, it's to better associate the output of a spell with the input. And there are times when that gap is like too big. And this should also reduce the number of unintended spell casts. So I think this will probably just be a good change to hopefully like tighten things up a little bit on spell casting. Coming down to this mana change, this is absolutely massive change that's kind of like on its own here. Where I think this is legitimately going to sort of change the itemization for a lot of hunters, because a lot of different hunters, especially when you think of like offensive hunters like a myth maybe, really needed a mana item to continue their assault. But now, if you can get a full mana pool simply off locking in a knock, that's really going to potentially change the game for hunters needing to get a mana item, especially DPS hunters that are kind of looking and thriving, you know, on getting kills. And it's actually just a knock now. It's not a full kill. So if you just send someone to the wisp state, which is way more reasonable to do than actually putting them in a death box, you're going to get full mana back. And so I think this is going to really mix up itemization here in a big way. And their intent with this is, you know, because of the amount of fighting that's happening, they're seeing a lot of like third, fourth, fifth partying happening on teams that are like out of resources. So they're trying to, you know, basically let the teams that are winning, you know, parts of their brawls be able to get like a little bit of a reset, and like, you know, have enough mana to actually use their stuff again. So it could end up being, you know, like a really cool change. It's just super interesting, and it's really going to change itemization, I think. Really going to, you know, start to have to ask yourself the question, do I actually need a mana item if I'm planning on killing people, right? All right, now coming down to hunter changes, taking a look at our new buddy Beebo. Everyone's still figuring this guy out, so we don't want to overbuff for lack of familiarity. I don't know if this guy needs a buff, honestly. He feels pretty strong to me. I don't think this bomb needed a damage buff, but it got one, so 10% more on the B-Bomb. We got a little more toughness, which is the hidden stat that basically tells you how well you scale the health on items. So HP item is going to be slightly more effective on Beebo now, just by a little bit. Also, with this base health increase, we are going to be a little beefier, a little more survivable. Our Fire Zeep is now going to actually be able to kill off of the burn, which is kind of cool, I think, because it was pretty annoying to like hit that and with it only doing the burn, not get enough for the kill when someone's like one shot. And then little bug fix where it's not going to auto cast when it's leveled. And then looking at Tonk Tonk, the cart is no longer instantly destroyed when the spell is cast near terrain. These are both bug fixes, and the general cart behavior should be somewhat of a smoother ride. Okay, so bomb damage increased by 10% at like all levels of the charge here. Fire Zeep can now kill with its dot. That is now lethal. We are a bit beefier to survive, and our cart shouldn't bug out if we start it near walls and such. All right, coming down to Brawl, I think this is, there we go, a little bugged out there. So if I zoom out a little bit, it comes up, we want Brawl to feel like an exciting, skill-expressive hunter. These changes are targeted towards shifting away from L&B Brawl and moving more toward R&B Brawl and reducing his oppressive mobility. And basically they're saying like, it feels really bad to play against Brawl when all he needs to do is hit you with his LMB, and especially when his LMB is empowered with the 100% attack speed. It's actually shing, shing, shing. It's not swash, swash, swash. But yeah, he can basically just shing, shing, shing you to death. And it doesn't feel very skill expressive on like either side because he kind of just beats you down. Can't do much about it in a lot of situations. So what they're trying to do is with this set of changes, we're looking to introduce more mechanical skill expression in both the playing as and playing against cases. Brawls will have to aim and track their targets better, whereas opponents will have more opportunity to use their movement options to dodge and weave. And before we get into this, I just want to say this is a massive Brall nerf. So to my Brawl homies out there, I'm sorry. This is a tough one. So let's talk about the LMB first. The the overall hitbox width reduced by 20%. I don't know if that's 20% on top of the 30% they already did in the hotfix, but if it is, that's huge because that's literal 50% of the hitbox he's lost over the last couple weeks here. And the sweet spot damage, which applied to the entire edge of the hitbox, is now only going to apply at the central tip of the hitbox. So let's see if they've adjusted his visuals yet to sort of account for this. So no. So keep in mind, guys, if you're playing Brawl, now the visuals are not going to match what they used to. So this was showing before, see this red part of the swing? This was showing the sweet spot of the swing, where anyone you hit in this red part was going to be taking more damage. Now that's only going to apply in this central line. So look at this change. Applies at the central tip of the hitbox. So now your LMB sweet spot, let's check it out on the dummy if we can. So look at this hitbox, bro. It's like the visual, you got to be really careful playing Brawl now. The visual doesn't match at all, bro. Like, not even close. So I really hope they adjust this visual soon, because you can see we have a little more range in the central point, and that's the sweet spot. But like, look at you actually have to actually click them now. Like, they can't just be in range of it. Like, you have to actually they have to be in like the center, because you have to actually like aim it. So the hitbox is like way pulled in, and you can see the range is quite a bit pulled in too. And if we creep up, it's like, that's what it looks like from the bottom. That's about what it looks like from the side there. From the top angle, it's like about there from the top. So it's still like, you know, a decent range in the middle, but you have to hit them right in the middle. If you're anywhere, you know, kind of off to the side, you're just going to like kind of miss completely. All right, and then huge nerfs to Blazing Spirit. Absolutely mega massive nerfs to Blazing Spirit. So the third and fourth bonus damage is completely removed. So previously, after your second swing, your third and fourth, if you kept swinging, you were going to maintain that empowered from the Caldera. It's not going to be that way anymore. And now your empowered attack speed is completely gone. So before, when you filled this empower bar from, you know, attacking creeps or enemy hunters, that got nerfed, so it takes a lot longer to charge now, especially off of creeps. So the most reliable way to charge it outside of PvP is doing the counter. So, you know, look at how slow it's going here, like to charge up. But if I counter him, it's like almost instantly full. And the counter is what we were talking about, where that circle comes up under him. But look, the attack speed was doubled with this before. It's exactly the same now. So we're completely gonna kind of miss out on the ability to like turbo shing anymore from being fully empowered. And we can see empowered still gives us 15% bonus damage and 20% ability haste. So it's like, you know, still good to have and like worth playing around, but it's not going to be those things on top of 100% LMB speed to where we could just, you know, absolutely crush people. And so potentially a bit of priority falling off on having to maintain Blazing Spirit, and that being like absolutely essential, because it kind of was before in a way. And then coming down to Flame Step, another super massive nerf to his mobility. On Brawl right now, or previously when you dashed, it didn't matter how many charges you used, they would all come back on the cooldown. Now they are going to come back one at a time. And so now instead of having all three right there, I only have one. So that is a huge mobility nerf to Brawl. And that combined with the tether change that happened last week, where you used to be able to buffer this. So if I threw that, the cooldown would start now. And if I waited it out, you know, I could pull and then I'd be ready to like tether again. And we can see now that's no longer the case, where if I try to do it again, the cooldown doesn't start until after I pull. So you can no longer buffer the tether for more mobility. And at the same time, you know, basically get only one dash charge back now instead of three. And so those two things together are going to make Brawl much more reasonable to be able to catch on enemy hunters, and less of him be able to, like, you know, 100% run you down across the map no matter who you are. And then coming down to Volcanic Rebuke, the final kind of dagger in the coffin here, no longer resets on Wisp execution. So you can no longer do the insta ult on Wisp and get it instantly back. And, you know, we used to be able to do the freaking rise off the ult where we could ult jump and we could go into the air. So that's gone now. And we used to be able to, you know, reset that, get that crazy elevation off of Wisps. So no longer going to be able to do all that. And yeah, now you're no longer even going to be able to, well, you can still box a Wisp, so still worth doing. But basically it's not going to instantly reset this like it did before. But you know, at max level and stuff, we're on a pretty short cooldown, like 25-second cooldown anyways. So the level 2 upgrades minus 10 seconds off the cooldown. So once you get it to level 2, you know, it's going to be up fairly often anyways. But yeah, pretty big Brall nerfs to my Brall homies. Hang in there. Let me know how it ends up feeling. But yeah, it's going to be a different experience on the Brall for sure. Definitely going to be a bit harder to pull off. But, you know, hopefully the plus side is that he's much less frustrating to play against. And that keeps more players playing the game instead of rage quitting because they can't do anything against Brall. So there's the sunshine. If you're a Brall player, is maybe there will be more players now. Oh, that's funny. All right, coming down to Celeste, more on like a positive, happy note. These are actually some really cool Celeste changes here. We have I'm going to just read this because it's actually a really good description. These changes are intended to sharpen Celeste's role as a space controller, on top of giving her more sandbox tools where she can really affect the shape of the battlefield. For the Celeste mains out there that specifically like to duel, these R&B changes are intended to provide more mechanical interest and options. So if we look at the R&B Cryosphere, it now does between 30 and 150% damage based on distance traveled, and now slows between 40 and 10% based on how close the target is. So if we switch over to Celeste here, and we look at the R&B, so basically, the closer an enemy is, the more it's going to slow, and the further away they are, the less it's going to slow. But then it's going to do more damage the further away it is. It's going to do less damage the closer it is. So basically, closer is less damage, more slow. Further away is more damage, less slow. So you're going to have this really interesting sort of like range mechanic to play around with your Cryosphere now, which I think is like really cool. Going to add to the depth of her kit quite a bit. All right, so we got a new level 4 upgrade for our shift, which is going to make it so when we dash out over the abyss, we are going to get some frozen ground. And basically, it's going to, it seems like the more we do this, whoa, it actually goes so far if you hold it. The more we do this, the like weaker the ground's going to get. So we can see it's like getting a bit weaker here. But, you know, Celeste being one of these hunters that's extremely good at playing out over Abyss, this is going to help that even further because she's basically going to have like an on-command like emergency platform to reset her glider fuel. And so, oh, you can actually make this below the terrain line now. That's cool. But, you know, it's kind of given us an eternity out here still. So I don't know where that like CDR is coming in, but... you know, we have a lot of time to exist out here. Okay, we can see this stuff's breaking faster, but it should be enough, you know, to reset glider fuel and still be able to do it again. Okay, it's breaking a lot faster now. So we still have time. We feather it out.
Like so.
I messed that up. Yeah, so you wanna we still reset it though. Yeah, so you can even with it breaking fast, you can still last out here kind of forever, right? As long as you can get this quick second in to reset the glider fuel. And then you can feather. Whoa. And then they added this really cool mechanic to the wall. So they gave it 500 more health. They reduced the cast time, but they also gave you the ability to actually stop it in place. So before it would just keep going, now you can actually like freeze it exactly where you wanted it. There's an updated graphic here too. Hopefully it's a bit of an updated feeling when you're getting pushed, because that's one of the jankiest feelings in the game is when you're on the other end of a Celeste wall. But yeah, some pretty cool Celeste changes. I really like this. Gonna, you know, make me want to get some games in on her. And then coming down to Elluna, with the earlier changes we made to Wisp burnout time, which was where they increased the speed that people bleed out. It was Wisp by like, they doubled it, so it happens like twice as quickly, which basically made Elluna like harder to use her tools of being able to pick up those wisps. We wanted to give Elluna more options around her unique strength of picking up allies. We also remember there have been previous versions where Elluna had too much power in this respect, so this is an attempt to give some of that back while still introducing meaningful windows for responses and counterplay. And for all the DP Seraphs out there, check out the level 4 upgrade on Righteous Root, which is this 100% increase on the detonation radius. A pretty massive increase here. Oh my god, it's so huge. Yeah, so like pretty sizable increase there on the R&B radius. That's cool, actually. It's actually really cool. And then we also have another new level 4 upgrade on our air dash where basically if you grab a wisp and your air dash is more than 2 seconds with cooldown left, it'll bring it down to 2 seconds left on the cooldown. So what that's going to let you do if you do the level 4 air dash is you can basically here, when picking up an ally wisp, air dash cooldown is lowered to 2 seconds. So you would basically be able to air dash in, grab the wisp, and now it's 2 seconds, and you could air dash again. So you could theoretically air dash in, ground dash Bhop, and then air dash out type stuff, right? Where it should give you more options to use the air dash sort of offensively to save, or even using the air dash to, maybe ship it in with a root and grab someone who just went down, like that kind of thing. Because as soon as you grab that wisp, it's going to be just 2 seconds left, and you can use your ground dash in that interim to, kind of buy you the 2 seconds to where you can like whoosh out of there with them and get them on the full revive, right? And then we have this nice little buff to our Q where heal is 500% effective on wisps. Depending on the ability level in your build, this heal is powerful enough to temporarily negate enemy stomp. So that's actually so rad, where now if we see an enemy hunter stomping an ally, we might actually be able to throw a heal at our ally and like basically temporarily stop that stomp, at least for the period of that heal, and buy us enough time to potentially get in there and save them, and get the full res, like get in there and get a scoop. All right, and then coming down to Felix, basically just a tiny nerf where his toughness, which is the kind of hidden stat that determines how much health a hunter gets from like HP scaling, like from items, like how well their health scales from building health on items. His has been reduced slightly, and basically because that influences his shield scaling, so they're basically just tuning him down slightly as the kind of scaling of everything is going up. A little like preemptive adjustment here. And then taking a look at Hudson, basically we have just a full swap between the ranges of the LMB and the RMB, which never really made sense to me that the unempowered shot farther than the empowered. So now it kind of actually makes a bit more sense, where the LMB, the non-charged up, has the shorter range, and then when you spend the time to slow yourself down and charge it up, now you get the increased range with the increased damage. So it's like R&B is your mega shot, and LMB is your unempowered, shorter range, less damage version of the gun. And in order to do this spin barrels, you have to significantly slow your your turn speed, your movement speed, all this kind of stuff. So kind of re-solidifying, they're trying to re-solidify his place as someone who's really good at holding an area, like space zone control for the area that he's set up around. When you pair this with the barbed wire changes that came in, I think we're going to be seeing Hudson, a bit of a Hudson resurgence back into the mix here. So all they did here, guys, is the LMB is 150 shorter, and then this empowered version is 150 longer. They just swapped the ranges on them, so now you're going to get rewarded in both range and damage for this big movement slow and turning slow. And then your unempowered shot is just going to, you're going to be able to turn and move normally, but it's going to be less range, less damage. All right, coming down to our buddy Jin, it's worth calling out his mobility nerf is on top of the hotfix nerf we shipped last week, where they removed his Q animation canceling. Yeah, so Jin got a couple touches lately. One of them was removing his ability to do that Q animation canceling, so he could kind of do it insta, the back end of it, the slam. And the biggest thing here that's really going to hurt the Jin homies is nerfed the dash impulse on the charge by 10 to 40% based on timing. So I think it's going to be harder to time the LMB movement. They didn't completely take it away, It's going to be harder to time it. When you time it perfectly, it's going to be 10% less momentum than it was before. And if you time it bad, it's going to be 40% less momentum. So it's going to be harder to do reliably, and it's going to be at its best, 10% slower than it was before, 10% less momentum. So if we take a look at like what that actually feels like here, like we can still get like pretty good like movement out of it, right? And so it's not like, it's certainly not gone. And what I'm showing here is the combo I show in my Jin guide, where it's just the LMB into the kick hop, and that's gonna still probably give you the most kind of distance out of the LMB movement. But basically, there's gonna be more precise timing on this LMB entry input to be able to like pull this off successfully. And I'm a little rusty on it, but probably gonna be like a little harder to do, in the heat of combat, just making sure you have the timings a lot more dialed. And then along with that, we have a 5% reduction in damage. So small nerf to the LMB damage. That wasn't a crazy part of Jin's damage. The LMB charge is a significant chunk in a lot of cases, but not a huge nerf to the damage because they didn't touch the damage on the flip/deathblow at all. Okay, and then coming down to Void, these changes are intended to give Void more options in skirmishes. For Voids that like to duke it out or find themselves pushed by other hunters, the Void Snap changes are intended to give you more maneuverability to either disengage or follow up. And what they mean by that is now on Void Snap, if you take it to level 4, it's going to give you a move speed bonus plus 50 when you cast it, and it's going to give you another plus 100 when you land it, and those actually stack. And on top of that, you're going to be slowed by 25% less when actually casting it. So you're going to have, sort of a lot more mobility when you are playing around your Void Snap trying to lock in that stun. And if we see what that looks like here, I'm just going to like strafe left. So we're less slowed, and then we get the move speed after we throw it, and then we get another 100. So we get 50 when we throw it, and then we get 100 when we connect it, and they'll both stack to give us an extra 150. So we're at 480, 530, 630. And so look, we're cruising for like a quick second when we hit that snap. So this is going to give you just a lot more ability to, maneuver around and do what you're trying to do with your crazy Void setups, playing around that Void Snap. And then we have another new level 4 upgrade on the swap, which is actually really cool. Going to give Void some like defensive utility, where Void and his allies are going to get a 300 HP shield whenever they enter the outgoing teleport zone. And this is also going to apply to Wisps. So it's going to give Void, better ability to get his teammates both in and out of situations, because you could give everyone a shield on your way into some crazy situation that you're about to blow up to protect everyone, for that first bit of damage. But then if you're trying to get out, or if you're trying to teleport an ally wisp out or anything like that, you can give everyone a shield on this end, and then, maybe save them from something that was going to kill them over here while you bring them back over here, and able to maybe get the res on that wisp because you shielded them, etc. Right? And so some pretty cool extra utility here around, the swap upgrade and the Void Snap upgrade. All right, last hunter change coming down to our boy Zeph. So basically they're not taking out bunny hopping, but they're just nerfing it a little bit. They're making it so each subsequent hop after the first is 90% as effective as the last in preserving forward momentum, and this dampening is like a debuff that'll reset if you haven't bunny hopped for 6 seconds. So basically, you're still going to be able to hop, but not in the sort of infinite OP manner that you could before, where eventually, it's going to kind of like catch up with you. And I'm not super good at it, but it's, some manner of this. And there's apparently some kind of like stacking, debuff now, where this is going to actually slow down over time, like your ability to, kind of boost like this. And so it still exists, still going to work, but, you might want to like let it reset a bit. I'm going to have to test this a bit more to see exactly how it's working, but you can see I'm kind of going less far already, right? Definitely seems like I'm going less far off it, just having skating around here for a little bit, so interesting. All right, and then hidden power changes. We got 2 brand new powers. We got Beebo's Boombox, plays otherworldly music that makes everyone in its radius invulnerable. So actually like kind of crazy power going to be coming into play here with the boombox, and I think this one's going to have pretty high priority because invulnerability is a crazy mechanic. So if we can find it, oh, just kidding, it's an exotic right here. That makes sense. Beebo's Boombox. So plays otherworldly music that makes everyone in this radius invulnerable. So you throw it, and look, and it's everyone. It's not just allies. So it looks like about 5 seconds of invulnerability on a 1-minute cooldown. So crazy new exotic here, crazy potential with a sort of, tool like that. Then we also have Thorn Shell, gain 10% damage reduction and 20% damage reflect for 2.5 seconds. Additionally, on activation, gain an additional short burst of damage reflect. And so this is one that's been in the game previously that's getting sort of re-entered here, Thorn Shell. So if we look at the details, on activation, gain a short burst of 75% damage reflection for 0.3 seconds. So for this tiny window when you press it, if you do the timing exactly right, you can get this big amount of damage reflection, but it's only 0.3 seconds. So you have to basically, catch whatever is coming at you to be able to proc that. But then afterwards, for 2.5 seconds, you're going to get 10% damage reduction on yourself, and you're going to get 20% damage reflection. So it's like you can use it, if you time it perfectly, you can use it to reverse a lot of damage. Like let's say it's a ghost laser, right? If I time it perfectly, I can reflect 75% of that ghost laser damage, like back at ghost. But then for the next 2.5 seconds, anything else that happens to me, I'll reflect 20% back, and I'll get 10% damage reduction. So two pretty cool, new powers to the power edition here. Big fan of both of those. And we also are seeing the return of Avalanche and Mega Avalanche, who are sort of fixed from being perhaps a little, overtuned on their pathing. So now they're not going to, hit stuff a few screens away and should be, a lot more, kind of realistic to use. And so these are these huge snow powers that got introduced in the winter patch that are actually really fun to use a lot of the time. But you have this basic version of Avalanche, and then you have the Mondo version, which does like 3 of these. But it's like a bunch of like little chonkers that they ground. They don't stun like a chonker. They all ground, and they add to the stacks of cold that can turn you into a snowman, incapacitate. We have another change to Power Shuffler. We've seen multiple Power Shuffler nerfs over the last few patches. So now when you upgrade a non-exotic into an exotic, it's going to blow itself up. And so basically you'll, your Power Shuffler exotic will get traded for whatever new exotic you shuffled into. Abyss Specialist, we can see the changes here. They say tracking an internal cooldown of 30 seconds is tough, especially for something as critical as, will I have an extra dash over the Abyss or not? With this change, it's much easier to track if you can proc Abyss Specialist while also clamping down on the extreme Abyss mobility. And so the way they're doing that is through this change where instead of it being on an internal cooldown, it now consumes 50% of your glider gas. And so if you have no glider gas or not enough for that, it's not going to proc. But basically, if you have a full glider, now you can get 2 uses out of Abyss Specialist over Abyss, but it's going to eat, your glider fuel, so you won't have that as an option. So I think that's a pretty good change. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But basically, trying to make Abyss Specialist usable still, but not as kind of crazy turbo OP as it was before, especially on certain hunters, right? And then coming down to Fate Rewinder, we see a lot of exotic changes in this patch. Now only restores 50% of your previous HP instead of all of it, so you're not going to get that full reset with the Fate Rewinder anymore. We also see a huge nerf to Replicator with the cooldown being increased from 90 seconds to 5 minutes. So more than double, like even a little more than triple the cooldown on Replicator now. Huge Replicator nerf there. But, potentially well needed, as this is probably the most powerful exotic in the game when you realize kind of what it can do and the power that it can replicate, especially in the right situations. And then they cut down the vacuum force on the living players for Wisp Vacuum by 50%. So it's still going to pull Wisps really good, but it's not going to have quite as crazy obnoxious of an effect on living players as it did before. So that'll probably be good for everyone that doesn't have Wisp Vacuum is going to like that. And then coming down to Little Helper, we actually have a clean breakdown on the Little Helper drop rates. And so they changed the grenade drop rate. And so it was previously this 14% anywhere but here, 42% death circle grenade, 42% smoke. Now 14% anywhere but here, 14% death circle grenade, 28% EMP grenade, which is our new item getting added here that we're talking about in a second, and 42% smoke. And the drop count is still 2 of all the above items. Coming down to item changes after powers here, these are all like consumables. And so Gnarled Heart, huge price increase from 75,000 to 112,500. And this is the item, like the super endgame item, that'll let you sort of choose the location of the final circle depending on where you place it. And so, kind of upping the ante on being able to secure that as an objective with more total gold potentially being in the game with all the creep farming. So kind of an adjustment change there based on everything else that's changing. We also see this really cool addition of this new consumable called EMP grenade. Throw a ground targeted grenade that shreds armor and slows in an area of an effect and deals 1 damage on explosion. So that means it can be used to spike. If it does any amount of damage, it will trigger the spike effect, but it's more for the slow and the armor shred. So if I can find one in here, I actually don't know if I can buy them yet. They might not be in the shop, so I don't think I can grab the EMPs yet in here, but in game you'll be able to find these EMP grenades, and you want to use them for the slow and for the armor shred. So look for juicy armors to shred with the EMPs. Then we also have some UI and sound adjustments to the ascending armor, where as you're getting that upgraded armor through the game, it should become more clear, and you're going to have UI somewhere, probably somewhere around your armor bar, that's going to show, basically its level of ascension. So probably somewhere in the bottom left here, or in your buffs on the right, you're going to be able to see how close you are to that next level of armor ascension. They reverted the texture on the broken armor, so it looks more different from the red armor to like a previous texture they had, just to help with clarity. They're upping the kind of mobility of the global shop, so they reduce the time it takes to drop by half, so it's going to come down twice as quick. They did a bit of power price increase on the powers in the exotic shop, where it's going to scale now from 2,500 up to 20,000 for tier 1, 2, 3, and then exotic. So tier 1's 2,500, tier 2's 5,000. Tier 3 is 10,000, and exotics are now 20,000. The one exotic that's in the global shop at the start is now going to be 20,000, up from 15. And the price of the Soulbound Scroll that binds one of your powers so you don't drop it on death that you can buy from the shop is up by 3,000 up to 5,000 now. And so, basically, again, kind of scaling things up and the price of things based on the expected increase of economy that's going to be happening with more creeps getting killed. I'm honestly like super confused by this change to Academy. It says a nerf to all you yim yams who were looting the Academy, reading all the books, and then teleporting out. Like, what the hell did you expect us to do? I thought that's why you put the giant teleporter in there. Like, literally, why else would it be there if not to teleport out after you got all the XP? So I'm so confused by why this is like a bad thing, or why they need to nerf this, because I thought that's literally why they put it in, but apparently it's not. So instead of being able to have those fun shenanigans, you're only gonna be able to do that at the start of day 2. So yeah, that's the one where I was like, wait, what? So yeah, you just can't use that big portal till day 2 now for some reason. So interesting one there. This wellspring change, however, in the map changes is really cool. So they basically did a full, I'm really excited to see this in map. They did a full rework to the wellspring over like mid left of the map, that spot with all the glider rings and geysers and abyss. There was like, yo, there's too much going on here. With the rings around, you don't even end up like interacting with the geysers, etc. And so they pulled out a bunch of the rings. They tried to make it more of like a distinct zone. They tried to make the pathing better, traveling from desert like up into wellspring. Like there was that big kind of disconnected gap there. Now, hopefully there will be like a clearer path to kind of traverse in between those areas, less abyss. And then there's going to be a large geyser at the center of the wellspring as well to play around some super bounce type stuff. So wellspring going to be, hopefully just a cooler area to fight around, like more distinct in its feeling. And then coming down to team communications, these are some really cool changes around the ping system that I think are like pretty needed, honestly, but are like actually like really good. And so SUPERVIVE is most fun when you work together. We're exploring ways to make it easier to non-verbally coordinate with teammates. So ping updates. The 2 goals here for them is to add more fidelity to the non-verbal ping communication so that you can communicate your intent easier. And the other is to update ping voiceover to better match player intention. So they want you to be able to communicate what you want better with the pings, and they want your character's VO to match what you're trying to say. So just to make the communication across the board much more clear. So you can now double press the ping button to issue a red enemy here ping. Let's go over here VO plays on ground pings. I'm going here VO now plays when the ping wheel's green arrow is used to play Let's Go Here. And then we have all these contextual ping updates. So basically, you can do things like ping your HP bar to print that value into the chat. If you're below 50%, it'll say you're hurt. If your mana's below 33%, you'll say you're out of mana. If your food is empty and you ping it, you'll say I need food. If there's a vault you ping, it'll say there's a vault there that you want to do. Pinging armor, now correctly says loot here. Updated chat messages with all this stuff associated to the pings to improve clarity. Using anywhere but here scroll or teleport soul now plays I'm teleporting instead of I'm recalling. So now there's differentiation between that and the fire. You can now emote while dead to communicate important messages such as air horn to your teammates. Lol. Emotes from dead hunters have a radio effect on their audio to make clear that the person speaking is speaking from beyond their grave. So you can now emote while dead as well, which is pretty funny. And then they added VO to 2 of the base emotes in the hunter's journey that most people unlock pretty early. That's the thumbs up and the thumbs down. And they're kind of doing this intended that you can add them to your emote wheel for more communication, where you can basically agree with the thumbs up and that'll play Roger that VO, and you can disagree with the thumbs down and that plays the no thanks nope VO. And so they're hoping that adding some VO to those emotes will help with this kind of increased amount of communication you can achieve through pings by basically enabling you to say yes or no to these contextual pings with these emotes, right? So I thought that was like a pretty cool idea. And, this is definitely necessary in these kind of games. And I think this is a huge kind of slew of pretty good changes in the right direction for like pings and comms. So bravo there. And then coming down to that last little bit of changes on client here, in the match history, you're now going to see an ally record. So it's now going to display your allies' names and provide a button to bring up their player context menu for invites and player reporting. So something that was missing in the past that's going to be just nice QOL is being able to, if you miss the run it back screen, you can actually find an invite or a friend, teammates from previous games if you had a good time playing with them, and you can kind of see, you can interact with people now that were on your team previously through a menu in the match history section, which is really cool. And then they did this just like a rework of the Felix mastery mission called Burnout, where it no longer tracks the numbers of knocks. Instead, it tracks the number of times the level 2 ignite is applied. And then it's just saying that the same application doesn't count. And that is the end of our January 22nd patch notes. But yeah, a lot of really cool stuff here. I cannot wait to get out here and get into the action with all these changes, because we actually have so much stuff. We saw the items, powers changes, all these hunter changes, big level 4 ability upgrades for some of them, this crazy mana change, changes to the revival rules being less intense, spell buffering changes, arena is going to be level 15 now, all these crazy changes to minions and PvE, and then all the big XP changes here with the leveling rework and being able to get XP on Nox. It's just a massive amount, and the reduction required to complete the battle pass, just kind of a massive amount of changes hitting in like a mid-arc patch here. And so I think they're going to be probably moving forward with 2-week patch cycles, where we see this patch hit this week, and we'll probably see an off week next week, and then the week after that we will probably see the beginning of arc 1, still in season 0. But basically that will be the addition of the next hunter and the next big slew of changes like this. But just like the way Beebo was introduced 2 weeks ago, Theorycraft has committed to a 1 hunter a month cadence for now, at least. And so I believe they do have the next hunter scheduled to release in just another short 2 weeks here. And that's going to begin arc 1, and then we're going to get one more arc 2, and and those 3 together, each of those being a month, is going to wrap up the 3 months of season 0. And then at the end of that third hunter and third month, that's when it would the battle pass would end, season 0 would end, and it would maybe roll over into season 1. So that's kind of like what we're looking at for the cadence, I think, moving forward over the next few months. But I'm super stoked to get out there, try all these changes, and for the next few months of SUPERVIVE, I think it's going to be super exciting. So can't wait to see you guys out there. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to take care of yourself and keep vibing. Catch you next one. Peace.